On the subject of risk assessment, we pulled U.S. foreign aid. We paused U.S. foreign aid with humanitarian exceptions. And then there was a bunch of negative blowback on how this was stopping critical medications and other humanitarian aid that was being provided to our, third world allies. Now we've loosened that spigot again. So the criticism is that we got too far ahead of our skis by pulling too much too soon. In which response to which you say,
we didn't issue a pullback. We issued a clarification. We always said from the very beginning, with the exception of Israel and Egypt, because that security assistance is a cornerstone of that Camp David Accord and the deals that were made there and are critical to that region. With the exception of that, we said all foreign aid is paused for 90 days, except for things that save lives. And what was mentioned in the executive order were things like food and the like. We went back, people say, we have medicines that we've paid for and that are deployed, and it's sitting on a shelf somewhere, and we are not authorized to give it to people. So all right, it makes no sense for us, if we already paid for the medicine, not to distribute it and give it to people. We don't want to see people die and the like. But I think what's important is to talk about the purpose of this pause, okay? If I went to these foreign entities, $60 billion a year, if I went to these and said, okay, show me your foreign aid programs and what they do, historically we've gotten very little cooperation. But if you go to them and say, okay, your money is stopped until you tell us what you do, now you get a lot more cooperation. So now a process exists, and that process is you apply for a waiver. And everybody knows how to apply for a waiver. They know how to come forward and say, this is what our program does. This is why it's important. This is why it makes America safer, stronger, or more prosperous. This is why it's in our national interest. Now we get details about these programs, and we may say, okay, the program gets a waiver. Or we may say, well, the program gets a partial waiver. You do 5 things, 3 of them are critical, 2 of them remain under pause. That's what it gives us the opportunity to do now, thinking of it almost as an audit, but not an audit in which we're voluntarily asking for cooperation. I think we're now getting a lot more cooperation because otherwise you don't get your money. And so I think as the weeks go on, you will see more and more programs come back online because we've had a chance to review what they actually are. Some will be partial, some will be full. But we've got to get control of this. We have this thing that I've called the foreign aid industrial complex. All these entities around the world that are getting millions and millions of dollars from the United States, we have to make sure that it's aligned with our national interest, that we are prioritizing that and that we're spending it on things that really matter and are really producing.
Like we don't want 50 million in condoms to the Palestinians? They deny that that's true. The Biden administration denies that.
But part of it was, they may deny the number, but they can't deny that there are things that we were doing in Gaza that had nothing to do with saving lives on the short term or even helping with a ceasefire. Here's the broader point. And I don't know, I'm rounding numbers here, but on USAID, about less than 12%. Let's be fair. Let's say 12.5% of every dollar, so 12 cents of every dollar, ultimately reached the end recipient. Wow. That means the rest of the money was going to fund some NGO somewhere, some organization. Maybe there's a justification for it. But before I stand before a congressional committee or the American people and say, we sent $1 to help this cause, but only 12 cents of it really got to the people we're trying to help. The rest of it went into the hands of an organization. How do we justify that? I can't justify that. I need to know answers to that. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to go through. And ultimately, our foreign aid has to be a tool that we use to advance the national interest. The U.S. government is not a charity. It spends money on behalf of our national interest. There are a lot of great causes in the world, and the private sector can raise as much money as they want for those. We, taxpayers, are going to invest in the things that further our national interest. And that's the process we're going through right now. And the pause has helped